Cursed swords were introduced nearly 2 decades ago, but we still don't know 2 major things about them. How were they created, and what's their true power? In this video, we will be speculating the origin. So far, the only clue we have is that black blades are made from a swordsman's haki. That's useful information, but it doesn't close this case, because black blades aren't said to be cursed as far as we know. I wouldn't be surprised if they were confirmed as some type of curse, but it's not enough to speculate. Because Enma and the Kitetsu blades aren't black, yet they are cursed. However, it's a step in the right direction, because while I don't believe it's the swordsman's haki that curses the blade, I do think that is the swordsmith's haki that curses the blade. In fact, it's not a curse but rather a test of worthiness. First, it shouldn't be too shocking that the curse is related to haki. Haki can translate to spirit, or as willpower, and many other similar words. When Zoro first used Shisui, he commented on how heavy it is, and how he'd need to get used to wielding a blade of its material. We now know it wasn't just a material, but rather haki itself. May the struggle have been Ryuma's will wanting a swordsman skilled enough to wield such a blade? Possible. I mean, it does match up with what a swordsman would expect of another who wields their blade. However, Kitetsu and Enma haven't been said to be exceptionally heavy, most likely because it isn't imbued with armament haki. I'm more inclined to believe that it's Conqueror's haki, which is invisible, so that explains why cursed blades don't have a change in color. Those who use Conqueror's haki are usually people who strive to be the very best at something. Someone that wants to be the best blacksmith would want the best warrior to wield their blade. Most swordsmen do not care about the intent of the one using the blade. Tashigi is a rare exception. However, the blacksmiths care more deeply for their weapons more than anyone else. They want to know that its wielder can honor the sword. When Zoro proved himself to the Sandai Kitetsu, it wasn't his swordsmanship being put to the test, but rather his conviction. My last piece of evidence is what we learned from a swordsmith in the story. Kitetsu tells Zoro that he is compatible with Enma due to his possible connection to its swordsmith. With all that said, that just about covers why I believe cursed swords exist. In part 2, I will go over what I believe is the true potential of the cursed sword's power. That's it for Food for Thought. I made it short and sweet, but if you'd like to hear me elaborate more, then stick around for the secret ending. Would like Food for Thought? Then check out the rest of my channel. Want to see some actually well thought out analysis and theories with a bunch of evidence to back them up? Well, then check out my series Deep Dive. Thanks for watching. So first, I want to clarify what part 2 is going to be about. So we know cursed swords are cursed, obviously. But what does that actually do for the swordsman? Like, why would that be beneficial? We're going to expect it to do something other than just be cursed and be a bad thing or detriment. Now, one could say, well, it just makes the swordman more powerful, or it just makes it a stronger blade. But I have 2 issues with that, personally. First of all, I just think that's boring for it to just be a power-up. It's kind of lame, in my opinion. And the second thing is that it puts into question how the Meito swords are ranked, because Hitetsu, in one of the recent chapters, implied that Zoro making the blade stronger would put it into a higher rank. So it isn't based off of how the sword began, but really the power it gets, that it obtains at a certain point in time. So if 2 swords are in the same ranking, one is cursed and one isn't, it's implied that they would be the same strength. So it's like, why would I want the one that's cursed rather than the one that isn't cursed if they're going to be around the same quality? So I'm thinking that there might be something different, like there's something special about the cursed blades that really could solidify it as being worthy of wielding. And just to give a little sneak peek at where I'm going with that, I'm kind of going to suggest how I believe Zoro's going to get devil fruit powers. That's all I'm going to say for now. So, in this video, the main point I'm making is that cursed swords are made from the haki of the swordsmith. Now, the question is, are the swordsmiths putting haki in on purpose? The reason I even question if it's on purpose is because it could be subconsciously. We've seen in the series that Haki can be used subconsciously. We've seen it with Luffy. He was using Haki before he even knew what it was. And we've seen it potentially with Zoro. You know, the breath of all things that Zoro uses is pretty much observation Haki without it being said to be observation Haki. Not only that, we learned in Wano recently that it might be armament Haki as well, because they have a technique called Ryo, which is just another word for armament Haki, but the way they apply it is a little bit different than what we've learned from Luffy. So, one of the inspirations for me even having that type of thought process is another manga called Hunter x Hunter, in which they have this ability called Nen, very similar to Haki. It's like Haki, but way better because it has much more applications. And one of the things you learn very early on is that many people in the world use Nen subconsciously. They don't even know what Nen is, but they use it in their techniques, in their crafts. And there's this one blacksmith who would make knives, and his name was Ben Dillon, I believe. And he would make these knives, and the knives would have Nen imbued in them, because even though Ben didn't know Nen, he was using Nen when he was making the blades.
This thing is... Look at that. You found a Ben's knife, huh? I didn't have any idea what it was. Huh? It just caught my attention is all. And that's when I noticed a faint aura. Wow, you weren't kidding. He said some really talented people can use Nen without even knowing.
So maybe the swordsmith are so ambitious, they have so much willpower that they're putting their spirit into the blades, regardless if they know they're doing it or not. So yeah, I thought that was interesting. I'd like people to know that that was a part of what helped me make this theory. Last thing I want to talk about is an upcoming episode of Deep Dive. Deep Dive, if you don't know, is... the name is actually pretty self-explanatory. I'm just doing a dive on a topic and it's very deep. Deep means long in length, so it's usually around an hour long of me just analyzing a focal point and then branching out from there. So One Piece is really almost the perfect series for that, although I'm only doing one episode this season, and that's going to be on Doflamingo. And then from Doflamingo, we're going to understand so much more about the world of One Piece. We're going to know so much more about the history, and we're going to learn about the inspiration for the story of Doflamingo, which will then tell you the inspiration for the story of One Piece at large. I'm going to be explaining Doflamingo's power. We're going to be talking about his family, both the blood relatives and his pirate crew. And finally, we'll go over to the real-world applications of what the story could be trying to tell us, the audience. There's a lot of wisdom to be found in One Piece, and I can't wait to uncover it.